evening viewers and welcome to the Art with World. I am your host ARSHAD WAHEED. Our guest today is Janab Tariq Bhatti Sahab. Tariq Bhatti is a cultural critic, short story writer, translator, and he also runs a literary organization Paraga, which holds weekly literary sessions of Punjabi poetry in Pakistan Academy of Letters. He has also translated famous novel Animal Farm written by George Orwell. He has translated that novel into Punjabi. Welcome to our show, Tariq.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm honored. I'm absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sparing time, because when you came first time and we talked on Heer Waris Shah, and there were some other programs on Punjabi Kafi and other Punjabi poetry. So we got a lot of feedback from our viewers that we have talked a lot about classical Punjabi poetry and all that. Now there is a time we should discuss Punjabi fiction as well.
That's a great idea.
And we didn't find anyone else other than you to talk on that.
I'm so grateful. I'm honored indeed.
So I would like to start, if you just give a background of Punjabi language and its evolution in different phases, and then how we can place fiction in Punjabi language.
Thank you very much, Arshad Sahab. I am so grateful for your amazing opportunity to talk about Punjabi fiction. I think when we try to trace the etymological origins of Punjabi language, and if we do not go too much back into the history, we can very safely go back to the 10th and 11th century, because as we know that Baba Farid, who is regarded the first Punjabi poet, was writing during 12th century, and it is logical that before him language was quite significantly developed and advanced, because the kind of poetry he has produced, the kind of vocabulary and syntax he uses in his poetic rhythm, it indicates that the language he was using for his creative expression was quite developed. So to begin with, if we use Baba Farid as our reference point, then we go back to the 12th century, and from 12th century till the emergence of Baba Guru Nanak, there are 300 years time, and when we talk of Guru Nanak, we refer to the 15th century. So this becomes the first period in which Punjabi language was being used for poetic expression, and we have got written and documentary evidence in the form of Baba Farid's Kafis in Granth Sahib. And then we go, as we proceed further, we come from 15th century to the 18th century, and we can divide this period into a different poetic period. And from 18th century, then the period of colonialism starts, when the Britishers came to the subcontinent, and they were able to conquer or annex Punjab in 1849. And from 1849 we come to
1848 or 49?
1849 precisely. The rule of Ranjit Singh ended in 1849. Okay. Formally Punjab was annexed by the East India Company in this year, and from 1849 to 1947 we can have the development and trends and themes of Punjabi up to 47, and from 47 onward then we can come down to first 20 years and then next 10 years and each decade, and from 2002 till date, so this is how we can have a cursory glance over the developmental periods of Punjabi language. And when you talk about fictions narrowly, like many languages of the Asia or subcontinent, we do not have much older written history, although we have spoken and oral tradition and poetic tradition. But since the printing press came quite later in time in subcontinent, so therefore we do not go back much in the history as far as the prose writing is concerned. We regard Bhai Veer Singh as the first Punjabi fiction writer, and then Joshua Fazldeen, who was Christian by faith, but he wrote many Punjabi novels.
And when was that?
Bhai Veer Singh was 18, to be precise. Bhai Veer Singh's period becomes 1898. And Joshua Fazldeen was writing in 1935 and 36. Both these writers were writing Punjabi fiction before independence of Pakistan, before 1947.
So other pieces of fiction before these two writers in Punjabi language?
Historians have recorded Bhai Veer Singh as the first novelist, so to say. But we do have different kinds of religious texts and short treatises and essays and maybe reports, etc. But when we talk of fiction writing, then we refer to Bhai Veer Singh. But maybe we have short stories that we will talk later. But I think this Bhai Veer Singh becomes the reference point.
And what was this novel about?
His novel was Sundri, and it was translated in Urdu also subsequently. And he was writing about the life in subcontinent of that period, and particularly he tried to raise issues pertaining to the rural life and the women folk and other identity related issues. But Joshua Fazaldeen is reported to be the first psychological writer of Punjabi, and there is a incident reported, his encounter with Justice Cornelius, the famous jurist. He kind of
at that time he was justice, or he was a lawyer?
He was a practicing lawyer.
Okay.
And this is attributed that he kind of taunted Joshua Fazaldeen that you do not have any psychological novel in Punjabi. And in response to that, he wrote 3-4 novels, which Prabha is his famous novel.
Okay.
And
Prabha means?
Prabha, I think it means it has a reference to the divine force, something religious and hymns like text, praying your deity, etc. But I'm not sure about the Prabha's meaning. I think this is because it has been used in Guru Nanak's text also. Parab is God. Prabha, I'm guessing maybe it means that.
So these are the only 2 novels written before partition.
Partition, yes.
Yeah. And how about after? Maybe we can talk about short stories as well this time.
But since we are talking about novel, I can briefly discuss novel. Unfortunately, post 1947 till 1961, there was no novel. And the first novel in Pakistani Punjab was written by Afzal Ahsan Randhawa. And it was published in 1961. And it was Duaba. And then subsequently he wrote Suraj Girhan. If I don't want to be wrong, I have written the exact reference. The first novel was Diwate Darya. Diwate Darya was the first novel. Duaba was the second novel. Suraj Girhan, yes, I was right. Suraj Girhan was his third novel, which was written in 1984. And Pand was his fourth novel. So Afzal Ahsan Randhawa in Punjabi's literary history is the first towering personality who contributed multifariously. He translated 4 books, one from Spanish language and one from Chile. He translated Things Fall Apart into Punjabi with the title of Tut Bhaj. And he also translated another novel, Buddha Jo Ishkiya Kahaniyan Padda. This was a Spanish novel from Chile. And Pehlon Das Diti Gayi Maut Da Roznamcha.
Garcia Marquez.
Garcia Marquez. He translated
Chronicle
it in 1990.
of a Death Foretold.
Yeah, Chronicle of a Death Foretold. So he translated 4 books, 4 novels. He wrote 4 novels himself, and he also composed poetry. He also wrote 4-5 books of short stories, and I think it was a huge contribution by Afzal Ahsan Randhawa. So whenever you look at the evolution of Punjabi fiction, you have to refer to Afzal Ahsan Randhawa. But then subsequently there were other people, Ahmad Salim, Naal Mere Koi Chale, and then I missed one very important reference, Amarta Pritam. She was writing before 1947, but she moved to India when subcontinent was divided. Her famous novel is Dev and Pinjar. And
a film is also
made on that. And there are other novels also. Amarta Pritam, I hope I wrote few of them. She was the first female writer who raised feminist related issues and caste related issues and religious discriminations. And she actually was the first writer who explored universal and universal themes, and she kind of painted human existential journey regardless of your linguistic or ethnic or national or religious identity markers. So Amarta Pritam is another important writer of that period who wrote. Then Kartar Singh Duggal, who moved to India, and Mohan Singh. So writers like that, they were writing during this period of 40. When we go upward, then we have Manshayad and people like Afzal Tawsif, Farkhanda Lodi. Mustansir Tarad wrote one novel in Punjabi with the title of Pakheru. and he has recently written another novel, Bhanna Dilli De Kingre. This is his second Punjabi novel. And Mir Tanha Yusfi, he wrote Kala Chanan, he wrote Khiddu, he wrote another novel, Annakhu. Annakhu is dark well. Yeah, and Tre, which means thirst. So Mir Tanha Yusfi, and then if you allow me, I can read quickly certain prominent novelists of Pakistani context, Manshayad, Tama Tama Tara, Azra Wakar, Bagam Wale Ra, Abdul Majid Bhatti, Theda, Ilyas Ghumman. He has written 4 novels. Jamil Ahmed Pal, Azab Din, Azab Ratan. Nansuk, another very influential writer who has composed a historic and kind of biographical novel pertaining, exploring the political and literary trends of the period of Shah Hussain. And he has written a very wonderful novel, and he has subsequently written another novel, Wabat-e-Waseb, which was shortlisted for Daha, a very prestigious award. And
that was about this COVID
period and the social impact and psychological impact and how it impacted our life.
And his first novel was Lahore Shahr Diwar.
Before Shah Hussain, he wrote Thikriyan, he wrote 4 Punjabi publications of short stories, but I'm not sure about the novel, first novel.
Okay. So can you just tell the decade-wise history of Punjabi fiction in Pakistan after independence of the country?
Yeah, this is interesting. If we talk about short stories, we come to know surprisingly that there were 57 short story publications, 57 books of Punjabi short stories. They were published before 1947, but they were all in Gurmukhi script. And after 1947 till 58, all these 11 years, there was not a single short story book which was published. There were 1 or 2 separate short stories which were written. Sajjad Haider is regarded to be the first short story writer whose short story named Udari. It was published probably in the Punjabi page of Imrose, which was a famous national newspaper of that period.
And so that used to have a literary page, Punjabi literature page.
Yeah, they had a dedicated page for Punjabi, 1 page for Punjabi fiction. It contributed very positively for the promotion and kind of inspiration and encouragement for the new writers to write in Punjabi. And then we have, I was just looking at an encyclopedia, a friend of mine has done a huge research, Khalid Farhad Dhariwal, who is himself a very accomplished writer. So he shared with me a list, year-wise list of Punjabi fiction, and I was counting all of them till 23, 1 year before, since 1947 till today almost, we have 302 total books written in Punjabi short stories. And the biggest number any year have witnessed is 10. Ordinarily, there were in the beginning 2 books a year, 1 book a year. And today we can say that more than 300 books.
Even now?
After 2000, they have not gone beyond 11 in any year, 11 books in a year. But the number of novels is being increased. For instance, recently, in this year, we have got 2, I remember, Kashif Baloch's novel and another Dr. Karamat Mughal's novel. This novel has very recently been published. It is his second novel. His first novel is Professor, and his second novel, I do not remember the name, but I have just written it down. So if we talk about short story, if you kind of compare the quantity of short story books and novels, the short stories are bigger in numbers. And novels, you may not have more than 100 novels so far in Punjabi. And despite 75, 80 years of our independence and all that. So this is the brief kind of total quantum of fiction we have.
Tariq sir, you were talking about decade-wise Punjabi fiction in Pakistan.
If you like, I can share quickly the decade-wise number of novels published in Punjabi in Pakistan and also the short stories. To begin with, if we talk of novel, from 1947 to 70, only 4 novels were published in all these 24 years. From 47 till 70, it becomes 24 years and only 4 novels were published. From 1971 to 80, during this decade, we were lucky to have 15 novels. And then from 81 to 90, there were total 60 novels published in Punjabi. And from 1991 to 2003, a very positive trend was witnessed and 34 novels were published. And from 2004 to 2007, we got 8 novels published in Punjabi, and there were other translations also. So far, if we quickly refer to the translations, Afzal Ahsan Randhawa, Jameel Ahmed Pal, and Karamat Mughal, and a friend you were telling who translated Waiting for Godot in Punjabi, and another Buddha Te Samandar, Old Man and the Sea, Ernest Hemingway. And there were certain novels from Chile and Spain, and another from maybe a friend of us, Malik Mehr Ali, who is a famous short story writer. He has translated Rulfo's short stories, a writer from Latin America, I suppose. So this is the status of translations in Punjabi. And however, one book has also been translated into English, short story book of Zubair Ahmed, Grieving for Pigeons. An academician based in Canada, she has translated Anne Murphy, I suppose. She has translated his stories into English. So this is the...
And Shafqat Tanveer Mirza also translated Lorca, Blood Wedding, and with the name of Lahu Sohag. And you also translated Sartre, No Exit, with the name of Buha Koina.
Buha Koina, yes, yes. You have very rightly pointed out Shafqat Tanveer Mirza.
There are many others, and we might be forgetting at this time. So, Tariq sir, why so? I mean, we have seen a lot of Punjabi youngsters, intellectuals, writers. They are writing like anything, mostly in Urdu. But you have just told about the number of Punjabi writings, particularly in fiction. It's not very, it's quite less than ideal, I would say.
I think this question would require a response on 2-3 different levels. I want to share certain very amazing and enigmatic and surprising statistics. If you look at ethnograph data of 2024, it says that we have more than 7,100 languages in the world as of today, more than 7,100 and certain other numbers. But if we precisely refer to 7,100, it's a big number. And Punjabi becomes 9th biggest language in the world, because we have more than 125 million people who speak Punjabi. To substantiate this claim, I would refer to the census report of Pakistan's population. Latest census tells that 122 million people are speaking Punjabi. Total population of Punjab, as per as latest census, is 125 or 127 million. And if you include 31 million of Indian Punjabis, and you include around 10 million of Punjabis who are spread in the world, it becomes more than 150 million. That becomes a big number. So by this standard, Punjabi becomes 8th, 9th or 10th biggest language in the world. This is a positive side. But when we look at the poor kind of quantum of literature produced, then we have to go back to the history. For instance, when Mughals were ruling subcontinent for many hundred years, Persian was the language of the court, language of the state, language of the education system, and even media, journalism, whatever. Then with the entry of East India Company into subcontinent, they replaced Persian with English. And as they were moving to different principalities and provinces and different regions, they were kind of distorting the natives' language. When they reached to Punjab in 1849, ironically and quite unpleasantly or atrociously, they did not recognize Punjabi as a language which was worthy enough to be used for their official business, for their court business, for their educational instructions, etc. They did not grant this status to Punjabi. So all the period from 1849 to 1947, Punjabi was relegated to the peripheral status. And unfortunately, from 1947 onward in Punjab, on state level, Punjabi was not recognized as a language fit for the medium of instruction. So all these 600, 700, 800 years of a language which was never part of your mainstream power structure, your judicial and revenue, academia, etc., you cannot expect a better prospect, which Punjabi has proved on the basis of its innate resilience, I would say. Because if you have kept any language away from the patronizing system for such a long period of time, the possibility to grow and expand and diversify becomes very minimal. I think this is my perspective on the...
Well, this may be true partially maybe, or maybe fully, I don't know, but that is before independence of Pakistan. You have referred. But what after independence of Pakistan? I mean, there were no colonial powers, and Punjabis were having a bigger share in power politics as well. So, is it that, I mean, if we just leave state's responsibility away, what about people and intellectuals of who are speaking and writing in Punjabi? They have not produced much.
I think to answer and respond to this question, I would again refer to the, a lot of scholarship has been established on this question. How coloniality disrupts your structures of cognition, and how colonized people start loathing and hating their heritage and cultural past, and how actually it becomes a new normal for them to look themselves from the lens of the colonizers. I would say with 1947 we were politically liberated, but we were not liberated intellectually. Probably the remnants are the seeds of coloniality. They stayed quite deeper into our minds, and the kind of person we became after a long period of foreign rule, we could not have enough moral or intellectual strength to identify ourselves from our own perspective. I would say a lot is attributed to the coloniality and the colonial institutional structures, which actually not only physically enslaved us, but they did not enslave our land, they enslaved our body, they enslaved our mind, and they enslaved our imagination. And I think the project of decolonization has yet not been completed. So therefore, I would very humbly kind of assert that whatever plight we are in, it is the logical corollary of the systems and the policies which were being pursued and implemented during the colonial period.
But there were other languages and people who were also colonized at the same time. Bengali language and other regional languages. Bengalis have produced even a Nobel laureate, and they were even colonized before us. Maybe I mean much earlier than Punjab. Punjab was the last to be colonized. So I think this argument alone is not sufficient to justify what you are saying.
I totally agree. It alone may not be sufficient, but see, the Bengalis case and Sindhi's case is totally different, because there was not a total disruption of the continuity of their linguistic journey. In Punjabi, it was a total disruption. Punjabi was totally exiled from the domain of the power, whereas Bengali people were not, for instance, we chose Urdu in Punjab instead of Punjabi, but in Bengal no such thing happened. Bengalis remained very much committed with their own language. They were learning English, no doubt, but English was the only external factor which was kind of reshaping and shaping their cultural consciousness. But in Punjab, we were twice removed from reality, as Plato says, in a different context. We were removed. I mean, we had to learn Urdu first, and then we had to learn English as well if we want to ensure our upward social mobility. So I think Punjab has a unique, different case, particularly with reference to the colonial intervention. And Bengalis probably, and Sindhis, their script was recognized, their primary kids were, for instance, to strengthen my argument, I would refer to Dr. Tariq Rahman's research. He has given a very wonderful statistical data. In 1940, there were more than 1,200 educational institution which were offering Urdu medium instructions in Punjab, and there were more than 13,000 students who were studying up to matriculation. And there were only 13 Punjabi offering institutions and schools in Punjab where only 96 people were studying. So this is and why it was happening, I would again go back to the history, because linguistic identity was replaced from region and it was ascribed to religion. Hindi was termed to be a language of Hindus, and Urdu was increasingly associated with Muslim identity, and Punjabi was confined to the Sikh religion only. So this 2 years of policy intervention of colonizers, it actually created such a big void that I, being a kid from a Muslim family, would not go to a Punjabi speaking school, because they would be teaching Sikh religion text, and my parents would not allow me. They would force me to go to the Urdu medium school because it is a symbol of Muslim identity. So I think I have partially kind of touched the different historical factors.
Okay, I think you may be right, but my point was only this, that we should also look into ourselves rather than just laying blame on colonizers and whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right?
At least now we should look.
Yeah, I mean, we are independent since last more than 70 years. Enough time.
It's enough time.
So, but if you keep on saying that this was done to us and we are victims of such and such things, so maybe we would always see things with a biased way.
I think optimistically probably this thing has started showing its impact now, because a lot of younger people are writing in Punjabi, and certain state institutions are also kind of now sporting. For instance, Pakistan Academy of Letters and Punjabi Adbi Board at government level, there is not as much kind of acrimonious attitude as it used to be in the early years of independence. Now regional languages, which I would say national languages of this country, are being recognized with more bigger heart. And I think if this trend continues, we can safely say that the languages of this region have better future, and we would have more writings, more cultural expressions into different languages being spoken by the people of this land.
Don't you think that young students now, mostly who study in English medium schools, they are not very much familiar with their Punjabi language and the Punjabi poems, classic poems, which we knew in our childhood, but they are not very much aware of that.
I think this is a very unfortunate trend. Probably there is much which we can attribute to the parents also, the way they are raising their children. But there is a strange sort of isolation and alienation from our cultural past and from whatever literary heritage we had. For instance, the English medium educational institutions do not allow kids to use any local language in their educational institution. They are ridiculed if anyone commits this mistake. As a result of that, they are culturally and emotionally isolated from the senior generation, their grandparents. So the linguistic repository, which otherwise could enrich their expression, does not get transferred to the younger generation. This is a big issue, and it would eventually become a totally disconnect between the past and all the academic accomplishments our forefathers have had. For instance, if our kids are not able to read Waris Shah and Shah Hussain, then all the books you have in your home and I have in my home would be sold one day as a trash, because they would no longer be relevant. So I think this is a very, very painful aspect about which you have referred, that we have not been able to transfer the legacy to the coming generation the way we should have or we could have.
So can you just talk a little bit about our senior generation who kind of promoted Punjabi language in fiction, and maybe in 60s or 70s, something like that?
I think this identity consciousness, it started getting its expression in 60s. And the most important and influential people of that period, as we have rightly referred, Afzal Ahsan Randhawa Sahab and Najam Hussain Sayyed and Shafqat Tanveer Mirza and Asif Khan and Jilani Kamran, although he was a professor of English, but he had a Punjabi consciousness and sympathies, and Safdar Mir, who was writing in Dawn with the name of Zeno, but he was a Punjabi language rights activist. And people like, although because of the TV, maybe Ishfaq Ahmed and Bano Qudsiya, they also contributed various short stories and plays into Punjabi. And then subsequently Mansha Yad's Tawa Tawa Tara, and people like Asif Khan and Saeed Bhutta and Mushtaq Sufi and Zubair Ahmed, Jameel Ahmed Pal, Ilyas Kumman, Colonel Nader. There is a long list, and currently our contemporary writers Ijaz, Karamat Mughal and Mudassar Bashir, Nan Sukh and Zubair Ahmed and Jameel Ahmed Pal, and one very important novel which was published in 2 years back. It was by Neelam Ahmed Bashir, More Bulenda. She has used this expression from one of the copies of Shah Hussain. Is ishq di jangi vichon mor bulenda, sanu kibla te kaaba sona yar disinda. So More Blinda is a very beautiful novel, I would say, and she has explored human emotions and human conditions in a very skillful way, and that novel actually goes beyond the traditional boundaries of Punjabi novel writers, which would remain confined to the rural themes. She explores quite cosmopolitan expanse and very existential questions in that novel.
This is a time we can discuss different themes explored in Punjabi fiction, novel and short stories both over the years, if you could.
Yeah, I think.
What was the earlier impact on Punjabi novels?
I think this is a very important question, and I'm so thankful that you referred this question. When we talk of Punjabi fiction, the watershed event that happened in the cultural memory and consciousness of Punjabis across globe is 1947. And because of this impact, the Punjabi fiction could not come out of the traumatic effect of partition, because it witnessed world's biggest human migration and a huge bloodshed and a violence on large scale. So Punjabi consciousness was trapped into post-traumatic disorder syndrome for decades, and even today anyone who is consciously aware of his past cannot cross that river of fire, which is 1947. So this event had a traumatic effect. Even Punjabi writers who were writing in other languages, for instance, Manto was a Punjabi writer. He was writing short stories in Urdu, but you cannot say he was not Punjabi writer.
Yeah.
And Ahmed Rai was composing poetry in Punjabi. His famous book is Taranjan. I think this is the first poetic book after 47 in Pakistani Punjab. So you see all, and Afzal Ahsan Randhawa's fiction, Rajinder Singh Bedi and Afzal Ahsan Randhawa's stories are overwhelmingly, they are shadowed by themes about partition, and Amarta Pritam's entire fiction and her very famous poem Ajaka Waris Shahnu, she talks about the horrendous human tragedies that occurred. So if you talk of themes, I would say in the beginning 1947 became the dominant theme, but then after 30 years Punjabi fiction tried to explore other issues like religious, social and feudal establishments, and the plight of life of downtrodden, landless artisans, peasants, women folk. So the Punjabi fiction always stood with the victim. Punjabi fiction and Punjabi poetry always stood with the oppressed and condemned the oppressors. And when we moved beyond 80s, we see urban themes were also included into Punjabi fiction.
Can you give some examples in which?
For example, about the first phase, we have referred Randhawa Sahab and Amarta Pritam and Kartar Singh Dugal. And when we talk of the later generation, then we have Azra Wakar and Mansha Yad and Mustansar Sen Tarar. They were using modern themes. But when we come about the postmodern writers who have kind of gone beyond the traditional limitations of faith and religion and national boundaries, and they have explored more modern themes, then we have other writers which we can refer about. Zubair Ahmed's short stories can safely, and Shahzad Aslam's 3 publications, Vavrole and Jangal Rakhe Jagde, and Nain Sukh's Thikriyan and Ai Pure Diwa, and his novel about Madhulal Hussain and Shah Hussain, they can be safely termed modern novels in terms of their intellectual outlooks and the wide range of themes they explored in their writing. So I think Punjabi fiction has gone quite a long way, and recently, as I refer Neelam Ahmed Bashir and Ijaz novel Loharo and Karamat Mughal's novel and Kashif Baloch's novel, which probably you have read before I have. So I think a lot of writers are writing the modern themes, and the latest kind of intellectual debates are being used.
Okay. And what's the role of diaspora in promotion of Punjabi fiction and literature?
I think Punjabis are everywhere in the world and they are writing in almost many languages. For example, some of them are writing in English, and like Mohsen Hamid is one of the prominent Punjabi writers who is internationally acclaimed as a fiction writer. He was born in Lahore, if I am not wrong, and he belongs to the family who hailed from Lahore at least before his birth. And people living in various different countries are contributing into their languages, but they are also writing into Punjabi. I would say Amarjeet Chandan is based in London.
He's a poet.
He's a poet, yeah. And first of all, poets come to my mind because in Eastern linguistic traditions we are more kind of imbibed always by poetry rather than prose. So I think there are certain literary magazine, digital magazine and a print magazine,
Yes.
which are being published regularly by the people living in other countries of the world. They have a positive impact for the writers elsewhere.
Even in Pakistan and in Punjab, literary magazines who in Punjabi have played a very significant role in promoting Punjabi
I think the first kind of thing that saved Punjabi language were literary magazine, which we cannot ignore. For instance, Dr. Fakir Ahmed Fakir and Akhtar Hussain and Abdul Majid Salek, and even Maqsood Saqib's very wonderful Punjabi publication magazine is Pancham. Lehra, Maa Boli, Punjabi Adab, Punjabi,
Rut Likha,
Rut Lekha, and Pancham I have referred, Ravel, Saver, Sahat, and Cookness. All these magazine and Shabd by Khalid Farhad, and in Indian Punjab, Jinder is editing a magazine, and another professor, I am forgetting the name, he is also. So all these magazines, they have actually provided the platform which when no other platform was existing. So I think you have rightly pointed out, these magazines have played a very, very significant role in promotion, preservation and transformation of Punjabi language.
and maybe advent of printing press also contributed way back in 19
early 19th century. It is reported that in 1830s,
1830.
first Punjabi printing press was probably the printing press which gave a little bit of attention to the Punjabi publication was it started from Ludhiana and subsequently from Amritsar and then from Lahore. Yeah, with the arrival of printing press, the publication. But one most important thing is at that time we were having our own kind of kissas which were popular, small stories in prose, and largely poetic publications were in vogue. And for instance, all the Masnavis like Saif al-Muluk and Heer Waris Shah and Hafiz Barkhurdar's Mirza Sahiba, Laila Majnun, Yusuf Zulaikha, all these stories were coming from generation to generation, but they were versified and they were very popular. And certain Kachi Roti and Pakki Roti, these were the books which would give basic day-to-day educational instructions to the people of this area. Yeah, I think all these things contributed positively from the total annihilation of the language, and now we are hoping that better days would come and more people would start writing. As I would say information technology and artificial intelligence is also helping to kind of save your energies and use it more intelligently and effectively and smartly. And translation is becoming easier gradually because technological support is available. Earlier, it was very difficult to consult dictionary for each and every word. Now you can easily speak and Google can tell you what is the meaning of this word. So I think we are moving towards a positive progressive period gradually.
So you've just mentioned that AI generated translation is very helpful, but I don't think it can still give a quality translation. It's more of translator's effort which is needed to do a good quality translation of any text into Punjabi.
You cannot say that AI is the total replacement or a totally dependable substitute of a human effort. Absolutely not. You have to have your own expertise. It can help you, it can kind of assist you in certain tasks and endeavors, but I am not saying that the total text translated by AI can be accepted as a kind of finest product and it can be owned by some author or translator. However, where you feel stuck, for instance, if it gives you some way out, then you should use that technology. To that extent, yeah, it is having a positive role.
Yeah, I think we should still strive that human creativity should not be subordinated to technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. It should not drive us.
You have also translated Animal Farm into Punjabi. It's a wonderful novel and very important novel. So what was your experience and what were your preferences while you were doing translation? You were kind of literal translation, or it's whatever its messages you wanted to translate that?
Interestingly, George Orwell's Animal Farm was part of our course. When I was doing graduation from Government FC College, and it was part of curriculum, those students who were studying English literature as optional subject. When I read George Orwell's Animal Farm, I was totally astounded, and I was mesmerized by the kind of use of non-human characters to depict human conditions, and to kind of use non-human characters, rather birds and animals, to make political allegory, and the way he wove the story, and the way he knitted that story, and the way he used that story, his candid expressions, his pungent satire, his very terse use of language and very short sentences, and they were open to multiple interpretations. So I was very much impressed, and particularly the theme he explored was of totalitarianism. For instance, he believed that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
And whenever you assign total power to any human being, it is bound to kind of be abused or used negatively. So this was
and all are equal, some are more.
Some are, and 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, and it's the hands which is the chief instrument of mischief, etc. And Orwell, other writings, 1984, and his political essays, and the way he conducts as a writer is amazing. Now, coming to your question, how I kind of felt while translating, to be honest, I was doing graduation, and I was a student, and I thought to give it a try. And when I started translating, at times I would feel frustrated, because when you were looking for the right word into Punjabi, Punjabi, for instance, when he describes horses and their ornaments, I talked to a horse rider of my village, and I got his help that there's a very elaborate costume of a horse when it is used for cart, and I would help from the people who were not literate, so to say. It is a very tiring and very it requires a lot of patience, and I felt that translation adds to your language skill quite a lot, and not only the language you are translating from, but also the language you are translating into. So to be a good translator, you need to know both the languages with a higher degree of expertise and excellence. But of course, it was difficult because we did not have speaking dictionaries, we did not have these technological support at that time. I would consult the dictionary, which were quite voluminous dictionaries, and we also did not have pronunciation related help. One big challenge I felt was how to totally transplant the cultural landscape of George Orwell's novel into Punjabi. For instance, the names of characters, Clover and Oliver or Bacon, they were quite alien. So I was thinking whether I should translate the name also, but then you become dishonest with the text also. So as a translator, this becomes a challenge. And then the other challenge is how to keep it simple and comprehensible, also remaining honest and true to the original text. But my method was actually, I would not translate from word to word. I would read the paragraph or a sentence, try to internalize the soul of that sentence, and then rewrite into my own words. I might like to deviate from a little bit from the original word, because only then you can write a creative and poetic and a literary prose in my view. So this is my view. You have already done a lot of translation. I would like to know your take on it, whether one should kind of experiment or one should be very, very strictly following the parameters.
Yeah, but that would be another subject. We can talk sometime later on. And who is your favorite fiction writer in Punjabi?
I would say from the classical writers or the senior writers, I love Amarta Pritam.
Okay.
Amarta Pritam has a strange magic and spell in both her poetry and prose, and she was herself a kind of mythical figure. She became legendary in her own lifetime. So those people who were, you know, just students and kind of learning the romantic history of Punjabi, Amarta Pritam was a very towering figure. So from the early writers, I would say Afzal Hasan Randhawa to him is a very wonderful writer, and he was quite modern in his own time because he used different techniques. But if you say which writer is more closer to my heart, I would pick Amarta, because Amarta in a very subtle way, you know, connects your soul and the totality of your personality. And she is non-judgmental, and she is very kind of sportive. She as a writer holds your hand and you feel her presence, you know. And from modern writers, I would say personally, Khalid Farhad is writing wonderful short stories. His book came in 2007 with the name of Vatandra, Malak Mehrali Dha Lagi Vasti. It's a very influential short stories book, which was also luckily published in 2007. But as a novelist, I would like Nain Sukh the most. Why I like Nain Sukh is because of the flow and spontaneity of his linguistic expression. And one of the reasons why I like him is because he is very close geographically to my own village, and I share the idiom with him. The language he uses is the language we grew up listening, and is the language which was spoken in our courtyard by our parents, by our, you know, elders. So I would and of course Zubair Ahmed's short stories are quite contemporary and urban in their sensibility. But Khalid Nain Sukh, whose original name is Khalid Malik, is more proficient, and he has a bigger vocabulary reservoir as a writer. And I would say his novel about Shah Hussain and Madhulal is a wonderful novel in Punjabi, and his short stories are amazing. And he has actually depicted the plight of most oppressed people of our society, the minorities, the untouchables, like Dalits. The issues of Dalits in Indian Punjab has been explored quite a lot. And Khalid Nain Sukh also talks about the people living in nomads and gypsies and homeless, and even the people who are doing the most kind of lowest functions for your society, like janitorial services belonging to the Christianity, and Balmikis of Lahore, and, you know, the people who are doing still jo Waris Shah, as Waris Shah says, Ashik Paur Fakir te Naag Kale Bina Mantro Mool na ki liye nahi. The people who have the profession of, you know, catching snakes and enchanting them and all that. So I would say Khalid is Nain Sukh, I repeatedly use his original name, is exploring Punjabi themes at a quite bigger canvas.
Thank you very much, Tariq Sahab. It was wonderful talking to you.
I am so grateful. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity to me.
Thank you. So thank you, viewers, for watching us. See you next Sunday, same time.